Welcome back to the Context Coaching Podcast. We are joined this morning by Rob Hoyt, head coach, head basketball coach, Columbia College. Thanks for joining us, Coach. Excited to have this conversation.
No, thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me, man. It's I listen to a lot of these, and it's an honor to spend the morning with you.
Well, let's get it then. So why don't you help ground the audience here with who you are. Take us through your background as a coach. How'd you end up coaching? What was the process for landing your first job? Any other stops along the way until we've landed here where you say you've been for the last 11 years, I think you said.
Correct. Yeah. So I'm one of the few people I think that knew what they wanted to do at a really early age, like fourth grade. Like I knew I wanted to coach. I had just moved to Sonora, California. That's where Columbia College is located. And I grew up next door to the head football coach of the high school, Sonora High. And I ended up spending a lot of time over there and with him. And that probably helped shape and mold me in that direction at a young age. So through high school, I knew I wanted to coach. I ended up playing at Columbia College for 2 years. And then went to Fresno State, not as a player, just as a student. And after my first year at Fresno State, I dove right in to coaching. I wanted to coach at the collegiate level. And so I had to get my foot in the door. And so there's two local junior colleges in the area, Fresno City and Reedley College. At the time, Fresno City had like 8 assistants and Reedley College had like a half of assistant. And so I chose to go to Reedley because I wanted to go somewhere where I was going to get the most opportunity to grow and learn. And I felt like at Fresno City, if I was like number 8 of 8, you know, I might be just holding water or sweeping up the floor every day instead of some other things that I thought at the time I needed to be getting into. So I was at Reedley from 07 to 09. So for 2 years there. And then decided I wanted to make a lateral move to gather more knowledge. When I was at Reedley, Coach Fonseca did a fantastic job. They were 46-16 the 2 years we were there. And he did it in a way that it was very loose. It was relationship oriented, off the cuff. And that worked for him. And he was very successful doing that. And then I kind of wanted to find something with a little bit more discipline and structure. So there was a tournament early in the year and I saw Cabrillo College. I saw how their team sat, how they looked, how they warmed up. And for whatever reason, I was really drawn to that. So I reached out to Coach Tony Markopoulos in the spring of 09, ended up over there from 09 to 2013. Along the way, doing all kinds of odd jobs that you know, you're chasing whatever dream you're chasing. Sometimes you got to do some things you don't want to do to get what you want. And that was boot camp for me, how to operate a college program, the administrative side, the logistical side, and then the technical and tactical side. And that was great for me. And then I was fortunate enough to get hired at Columbia College in 2013 at 28 years old, and couldn't find my butt with both hands or see past the end of my nose, but I figured it out a little bit, and I've been here ever since. And along that way, I was part-time when I got hired, and I knew I was hoping I'd get a part-time job. I knew I wouldn't get a full-time job without the experience of being a head coach. And so along the way on my tenure here at Columbia, I actually coached volleyball. I was the head women's volleyball coach for 5 years, which at the time I couldn't even spell volleyball, let alone coach it, but I did that for 5 years and that got me full-time. So I kind of negotiated my way into getting a full-time job here, and I've been here ever since.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I'm going to go a different direction here than you would imagine based on the last thing that you just said, which is I was the head women's volleyball coach for 5 years. And so what I want to know is, since you said you didn't know a lot about it other than you've probably watched it, what were the things that you found translatable from your experience as a basketball coach to taking over as volleyball? And what are the things that you have found that have transferred back or that enhanced your ability to coach, spending 5 years coaching volleyball alongside of basketball?
No, great question. Probably the biggest impact I got from doing both was being able to put myself in a situation where I was uncomfortable and really growing from that, because I didn't have a starting point, and you're jumping in the deep end and you have to figure it out, and you get more comfortable in life by doing some things like that. So that helped. As far as, I treated the girls the same way I treated the guys. The structure was the same, the discipline was the same. The girls really liked that, that they weren't treated differently. They were all treated fairly, but I guess they were treated differently based on, attitudes and who we're talking about and things of that nature. That goes with any sport. But no, we treated them the same. There was a huge learning curve for me, but as far as the structure, everything up here is very structured, and we kept the girls to that. And then I think from volleyball back to basketball, I think I think a lot of people, when they coach two different genders, they like to say that like the women's side is more relationship oriented, but I honestly think the men's side is too. They just mask it. And so I think maybe it helped in that regard, but I don't feel like the men devalue relationships and the women value them more. I think it's the same. I do, but I think that you have to go about different ways of kind of getting that to the surface with different people. But overall, I think, jumping into something new and trying to get as comfortable as possible in an uncomfortable situation. And then just time management. I had to be really efficient with my time. I was losing 30 pounds 3 months, which I don't even have 30 pounds to lose, but I was getting pretty sickly looking, and it's from not eating, getting up early, the regimen we have here, and then back-to-back practices and meetings and things of that nature. But it was a lot, but I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, no doubt. And I appreciate what you said about relationships and how people try to make it binary, right? Like you need to do this with women, you need to do this with men. And there's a lot of transferable things. And it's really about your approach, your authenticity, how you're navigating that. And what I'm really after in that, and I'd like you to dig a little deeper if possible, is I think people get tunnel vision as to where they can find coaching growth. And often, hey, you're a basketball coach, so I need to go watch other basketball coaches. But now you're actually coaching a different discipline. You're having to ask other people that are volleyball specific. And what I really like you to do, if you can, is just shine a light on like, hey, look, I would have never figured this out if I was just dealing with basketball people. And this is something that I got from volleyball that I still use today, be it an activity or be it an approach or, some way that you look at the game, right? Because it's a completely different substitution pattern, or the strategy's different. But can you just dial in maybe one or two things so that people know, hey, you don't just have to focus on your discipline if you're trying to get better there. All these other things translate, and it actually was super helpful to get beginner's mind again.
Right. No, I think the biggest thing was, in whatever realm that you're working in, whether it's coaching or business or whatever you do in the world, it's a human element, right? So whether it's the subject matters basketball or volleyball or baseball or football, it's still, or business or whatever, or the hospital, it's about people. It's about people first. So yeah, it's a different set of people. And so, that kind of, I think what I got from that is more like we need to have more off the court collisions. And so what I mean by that is the women really enjoyed the off the court activities, or the off the court, the non-volleyball, if you want to say, things that we did. And I didn't do that with the men as a younger coach. And I do it now. We do a lot now. And that has been extremely beneficial. And then going back just to the basics, because I had to learn the basics, because I didn't know. I mean, I was getting carded every game. I didn't realize that you got a yellow card or a red card in volleyball. I thought that was a soccer thing. And I was like John McEnroe screaming if the ball is in or out, and I was getting carded. And so just going all the way back to the basics of how we do this. And a lot of that is, you have to be in position to be in position to make a play. And so it's just about everything, your footwork and where's your body positioning, where your eyes, where's your angle. And then that's any sport, based on your position.
Yeah. And I think actually in volleyball specifically, what you just said may seem central only to volleyball, but to your point, it translates to be in position to make, what did you say? Be in position to make a play. I don't know.
Be in position to make a play.
There you go. Right. And so ultimately what it rings a bell, I talked to my volleyball coach last year, and at the high school level, right, you're not getting a ton of blocks depending on your sizing. And I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about just not trying to block hits and just getting in receiving position? And she said something that for me was a light switch, was like, you're not always trying to block. You're trying to direct where the ball's going to go. And to your point, to be in position to make a play, it's similar in basketball. If you're trying to do something schematically, you got to understand the chessboard of like, these first two things are pretty irrelevant. We're trying to steer it over here, or we're trying to get it over here. And it's a very similar concept. Can you talk about that a little bit?
No, absolutely. Well, one, to your point, if you can't get your hands over the net, I know we did that, and it was like, you're not jumping. Like if you can't, you're not steering it or directing it anywhere. If you can't even get a fingertip over to the net, to your point, and maybe I'm not a volleyball person, so maybe volleyball people would scoff at that. But I think like with basketball, how that relates is, we teach our guys how to look when whether it's posting up or dribbling, or as you get closer to the rim, then further from the rim, and try to talk to them. There's three officials. Here's where their eyes are. This is what they're looking at. We are the beneficiary of that more times than not, because we understand it's not whether you get fouled or not. It's what it looks like. And if you look like you're in position, or you look like you're in control, or you look like you're out of position or out of control, that is going to influence the decision-making of the three people who are officiating your game, which can influence the outcome of the game. And so it's about, like we said, just put yourself in position to be in position. And that's kind of where luck kind of can grow from that. Certain people get lucky all the time. Well, a lot of times it's the most disciplined people and the people that are in the right positions all the time. That's the way the ball bounces, or that's the way it's being viewed. And now it's, can I get our guys to understand that in whatever situation we're talking about? And we do that through film, and we film practice and individual, sessions and things of that nature.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's go back to the beginning. What did you realize when you first landed at Columbia as the basketball coach, even having, worked under Markopoulos and Fonseca, who are, talented guys who've had a ton of success, and you got to look behind the curtain, but what did you realize right away that you needed to figure out? And I always ask this because this is designed to be a digital database of mentorship, and I'm trying to help people new to the job or pivoting to a different site, right? Or opportunity. Hey, what are the things right off the top, A, B, C, D, that you're going to get hit in the mouth with? Yeah.
So, one was, I think any new coach, first time head coach, you're figuring out yourself. And that's kind of a slow cooker. I don't think it's like a microwave process. I had to figure out Columbia College, the institution I work at, and then the processes and how that works. So with myself, it's, what type of coach am I? What's valuable to me? What are my non-negotiables? And then along the way, one of the biggest differences, obviously, as an assistant, you have the opinions, and as a head coach, you're the final say, the decision maker. But it's mastering problem solving, right? And understanding that every time you solve a problem, you're creating another one. And it's this endless cycle. And as you get going, you get better at seeing things before they happen and anticipating certain things and correcting it. But when you get into it, there's just a million things. It could be simple as, your practice uniforms, or things that, we don't think about right now. But at the time, it was all the logistics, all the administrative stuff. How do I order something from Columbia College? How do I work with the business office, the counselors, the financial aid, and then who can I trust and who can't I? In a perfect world, everybody wants everyone to, do well and be successful. That's not how it works all the time. And so you have to, kind of feel people out. And so I think it was, it's overwhelming for anybody, I think, their first time. And I believe at the time I was the youngest coach in the state of California at 28. And, you're on average, men, their frontal cortex isn't fully developed until 27. So like I told you, like I couldn't find my butt with both hands at the time. And so there was a learning curve right there. So yeah, I had to figure out myself. I think that took like 4 years, honestly, to really dial in, and then a little quicker to figure out how Columbia College worked. And then and through those, trials of problems, you grow and you get better at those problems. The problems don't go away. You just get better at dealing with them.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that. So I just spent some time with one of my former students who's running like 5 different businesses. And I was like, well, how do you do that? And he's like, well, something that used to take me 40 hours a week, now I can get it done in 4, which then frees up my time to do this other endeavor. So can you point to maybe a couple of things that you feel you've mastered and hacked in a way that a newer coach, either experientially or new to a location, is still wrestling with, where it's like, yeah, like these 3 things, like takes me like 5 minutes. But when I first started, it was an hours long endeavor. Are there a couple of things now that you feel you've hacked, that you've got mastered in this moment, that frees you up to invest in other things?
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of coaches, they love to watch film, right? And so whether that be your scouting or film study of your own team. And so for us, we've kind of created, and we kind of fell into this, where how we play is so connected that our scouts now, I'm not spending hours on film because of how we play. It's more so we're talking about the conceptual part of the game and like their emotions of the game, rather than what the other team does, because of what we do is so it translates from game to game. It doesn't really matter what the other team's doing. So we've kind of created systems instead of goals. So like my first go around, my first couple of years of this, I was very goal oriented and a box checker. And I think that really boxed in my growth. And since then we've adapted to more systems. Like, this is how we do this. This is how this works. And we don't worry about the results. Obviously we want to win, but we're not worrying about it. We're worrying about completing these systems and creating these habits. And through doing that, we're just saving an immense amount of time, because what we do is just boom, boom, boom. It's very clear. It's very concise. Teaching, right? I would talk. Coaches love to hear their own voice, but I would over talk the first 4 years. In the last 5, 6, it's how can I be more clear? How can we get to the point? How can we cut out, the crap, so to speak? And what I mean by that is, if it doesn't apply to the game, I did that one summer, which was really big. It's like, if it doesn't apply to the game, why are we doing this in practice? Like, why am I doing 3-man weaves? And I know a lot of people do that, but it's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not stretching. I don't think stretching is bad. I think people should stretch, but I'm not doing it on my time. And if you're 18, you can eat cardboard and go. And there's some nutritionists and everything that might not like that, but that's how it was for me. So it's just, cutting the crap and being more efficient and creating systems has allowed me to really dial in on what the meat and potatoes of what we do.
Great. And you just touched on something else that I'm a firm believer in, which is being as efficient as possible and not wasting time doing things that don't necessarily return a large amount based on your investment. You mentioned 2, 3-man weave, you mentioned stretching. I'm sure there's a list of other things. Right. But let's talk about that for a little bit. Why not? What made the decision? I'm not stretching anymore. We're going to do X. And I'm not doing 3-man weave anymore because I'm going to do Y. And this is more just like a back and forth dialogue of different opinions that people can now then reassess things they're doing. Not like, oh, I should throw out 3-man weave, but like just challenging and questioning why we do things is something that I think we need to do more of in every aspect of our jobs. So talk to me about those 2 things and anything else you've now thrown out into the garbage disposal.
No, that's great. So one summer, and this all started, one summer, probably 5, 6 years ago, I sat down and I didn't have like a blueprint, like pen to paper. There's power with putting pen to paper, because we all have all these ideas and all these things we want to do. But if we really had to narrow it down, like what's really important to us as people or parents or spouses or whatever, coaches, whatever it is, put pen to paper. So one summer I was like, what is my philosophy? Not an interview question, answer. What's my philosophy? And it took me 7-8 months to come up with this diagram I have. And what it is just a blueprint for how we want our program to be on a day-to-day. And the three main parts of that are competition, grit, and relationships. And that's a whole other thing that I could get into. So, but from that summer, then that kind of was a domino effect. So then the next summer, it was what you asked is I started questioning everything we were doing. Like, why do I do this? And a lot of times the answer was because that's what I did when I was playing, or that's what I did when I was an assistant coach. And that's because that coach did that when they were a player, when they were assistant coach, and so on and so forth. And so we questioned, like, I think there's value in stretching, of course, but I'm not going to waste my time doing it. So when we start practice, we take charges, start practice. Very first thing and they're not bouncing the ball. It's like football. Like they're running and they're getting drilled and then they're jumping on the floor. So there's like blood everywhere in the first like 10 seconds of practice. And that suits my personality better. Like, let's do that. 3-man weave. Okay. Well, you have to move and pass and catch. And it's like, okay, well, I could do that while I play basketball. Like, let's get more reps at what we're doing because it's less sets and it's more organic how we play, but you have to get reps of that. So it was really looking at what are the main things we do in a game, and we need to do that the most in practice. And then on top of that, I think what's even more valuable than anything you do in practice is how these meetings you have to have with your guys. I think whether it's small groups, big group, or individual, and we try to do that every day, to where, like I told you before, it's more of this conceptual approach to your emotions in the game. Before the game, I don't write anything on the board. I'm not writing. I know I'm kind of going off right now.
No, you're not. It's great. But I don't either.
Yeah, I don't like, I got rid of the whole, like, I'm going to write down all the tendencies of all these players on the other team. You know what? Like, if you don't know that, if I had 3 days before a game and my team doesn't know that, I screwed up. Like, they're going to know that, and they're not going to remember it 5 minutes into warm up anyways, when their favorite song comes on and they're doing their, our shooting or whatnot in warm up. So we talk about, hey, this is going to be 40 minutes of adversity. Okay. However you think this game is going to go, flip that upside down and imagine it not going that way. Imagine them going on a 10-0 run. Imagine you getting in foul trouble. Imagine you not feeling good. How are you going to respond to that? Mm-hmm. How are you going to be as a teammate? What's your attitude going to be like? What's your effort going to be like? So in all those senses, like we try to just cut it right to the game and right to harvesting confidence with these guys. And I think that's really important. And so, yeah, we went through all that, and essentially we play more live, and there could be constraints to it. It could be, half full, then we stop. And then I'd try not to stop practice, and talk, because I film practice. Let's get more reps, right? A bad rep is better than no rep. Let's get more reps. And then I'll bring the guys in later that day. We practice in the morning usually. I'll bring the guys in later that day or the next day, and I'll have all the clips I want to show them to try to teach them that way. So I just think we've become more efficient, and it's translated to the games.
Yeah. And on that, I think the takeaway is what's important now, right? So when you're in season, you're doing certain things that are purposefully directed at having an outcome on gameplay, where in the JUCO world, you guys basically train year round. I would assume out of season, you're doing some other things that maybe are more specific to individual skill acquisition. But the key there, and I'm with you, is like, hey, when's the last time you played 5-on-5 to start practice, right? Right. And it's not for you specifically, but that question for all of us coaches, right? When's the last time that you took whatever sport you're coaching, be it water polo, be it football, that it was like, yo, first 20 minutes of practice, we're playing 11 on 11, right? And well, why would you do that? Well, because the kids want to play. They don't want to do all this other stuff. So how do you engage them at the front, then work from that sample size into whatever it is you need to address that day, and then go there? And it sounds like you've adopted that based on trial and error, but it also seems to be kind of where some progressive thought these days is going, depending on what type of approach you have to the game.
Right. No. And yeah, to that, we do something, related to that is once we get to January, once we get into conference, it's very scheduled. We play Wednesday, Saturdays in the Central Valley Conference. So on Sundays off, typically, so we don't come in Sunday, but Monday, what we do is we'll play a 7-game series, 2-minute games for practice. And the guys love it. They love it. And so I don't ever pick teams ever. I always have 2 guys who we record everything every day. So we rank the guys every single day. So this year we'll have 14 guys. They're going to get ranked 1 through 14 every single day. That's going up on the locker room. So whoever was number 1 and number 2, they get to pick the teams the next day. And it's just like playground, like, hey, you got first pick, you got second pick, go. And then the guys kind of see where they're at based on their peers, perception of them. And it's, we try to create a hierarchy in our program. And so it kind of helps for that. But we play and we start practice that way. But when it's, September, October, obviously it's more teaching, more talking early on. But at the same time, once we did that philosophy, that blueprint, everything has to have a score on it. Everything has to have a competition. And it's not like we're running them into the ground if they lose. It could be, a shooting drill and the winners go sit down and the losers have to go get them a cup of water and hand it to them. They hate doing that more than running. They don't want to hand their teammate a cup of water and their teammate's like, hey, I said crushed ice, just joking around, not whatever. So, but I just think everything has to be competition, and you have to, like you said, you have to mix it up. You can't just do the same thing over and over and over again. But at the same time, there's a ton of value to routine. So it is a fine line, but your team will always tell you what you need. You're with them every day. They're going to tell you what you need to do.
Yeah, no doubt. So I spent the last week with Dustin Aubert, who was at Solano for a while. And one of the things he kept making a joke about in the session he was leading was, don't make me go JUCO on you. You talk a little bit about the level and the things that make that level attractive to you. And I remember when Coach Katz was at Delta and I asked him, hey, what is it hard? Is it challenging having guys for 2 years, people kind of coming in and out? And he was like, I love it. They're a captive audience, and it's like they want X and I can help them get there. So they're actually more coachable than, say, people maybe at the high school level. I'd love to get your take on that and the things that are a challenge at your level. What does that mean? Don't make me go JUCO on you. And also, the things that you really enjoy about your level.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I mean, that could have went any direction with don't go JUCO on me. But really for me, it's you have to do everything. As far as from a coaching standpoint, it's you're washing the jerseys late at night. For me, now, not every program is like that. We're one of the little people. We're like the smallest school in the state. There's 100 basketball teams in the state. We might have the lowest enrollment. So I'm sweeping the floor. I'm doing the jerseys. I'm doing all that stuff. And then like you said, with the turnover, yeah, you get guys, and we've got to the point where guys are coming here to play basketball, and we have great professors here, but they're not coming here for the English department and the math department. Now, school is important and they need to do well at school, but that's not why they're coming out to the woods to play here. They're coming for basketball. So to your point of a captive audience, they're coming here with the goal that they're going to get out. And in order to do that, they have to listen. And a lot of that comes from early stages of recruiting. When I'm on the phone with them, we never tell them what they want to hear. I'm not kissing their butt. I'm not going to do it. They're going to come on my terms. They're not going to come on their own terms. But as far as JUCO, I mean, what I love about it is you get a chance to really, really help guys. And it might not even be, basketball related. Like we had a guy on our team this last year and he wants to get into the fire academy. So we got him going into the fire academy and hopefully like starting him off on that career, and hopefully he has a long, career in fire. And so just being able to help people, 18 years old, very impressionable age, and you have the ability to really help or hurt someone based on how you handle them. And I think that's what's really beneficial to me. And then as far as California junior college, these are the best jobs in the world because you get tenured. We could go 0-28 and I'm not getting fired because I go 0-28. The flip side of that, we've been 28-2 and, people are happy, but they don't care. They like, it's just you. It's the internal pressure you put on yourself. Is it hard to be good? Yeah. Like anywhere you're at, it's hard to be good. but that's because you have to do all these little things and all the details matter. But I don't know. I think, JUCO's probably not for everybody. You get different walks of life. You get a different type of guy sometimes, and it'll really challenge you as a leader and a mentor, like to help people that sometimes are 1 foot in, or 1 toe in, it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, no doubt. On that note, what would you say then is the best thing you do in your program that has the largest ripple effect on the culture you're trying to create? And by that, I mean, if you were to leave tomorrow and go to another job, be it 4-year high school, JUCO, youth league, like what are the things that you would take with you that you feel translate and are pin, in the culture you're trying to create?
Yeah, I think with, culture is also this buzzword. And I really think that culture stems from communication, and communication kind of stems from relationships. Like you have to put forth the effort to build these relationships, and then you can have better communication with the individual because you guys have this common ground, or you feel comfortable with one another, and then things build from there. And that's your culture essentially. And obviously there's more to it than that. But one thing that I would take if I went anywhere else would be the philosophy that we created, and then the relationship part, the off the court collisions, the retreats we go on, the trip to Yosemite we go on, the stuff they're at my house all the time. That's the most meaningful part of the job for me. And I think it allows me to have a greater impact on the people I'm working with. And I think you can do that anywhere, and you can do that in any sport. Like I said, we did it with volleyball. We end up setting a school record in volleyball, for most wins. And like I said, I can't even spell it. So it's more about the relationship part of that stuff. And so I think that would translate over directly. The technical and tactical stuff, like that's going to come and go based on personnel and things of that nature. But I think the time spent, the collisions off the court, we usually don't practice on Wednesdays. I don't like going more than 3 days in a row because it's hard on their body. And so we do a lecture series I created over COVID called Real World Wednesday. And so it's this Prezi document, and it's got different topics of focused energy, has our philosophy on there, habits, grit is a big thing with me. Agape, it's a form of love in the Greek culture. And we talk about that, as men in society, it's acceptable to hide emotion or not show emotion. And we're trying to break that thought with these young guys and let them know it's okay to have emotion and express your emotion and how you feel. And it's not weakness, it's actually strength and having self-awareness. But those type of things, I would take that wherever I go. And it just really helps me help them. And if it ends up we have a good basketball team or not, we do, but it's more about them as people.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the key that you keep coming back to is being able to have relationships that then allow you to meet the kids where they are and figure out what's needed. And I think that's a great lesson that people can take away. And the thing you keep mentioning is off-court collisions, which aren't collisions in the way in which they are in a car or football, but they're designed to have run-ins or even unintentional ones where you take that time away from what you're trying to work towards together to build a little ligature that you can use as a relationship piece to then get your teaching across. Let me ask this. How has your approach changed over the last, what did you do? 2 + 4 + 11, 15 years. How has your approach to coaching changed? What are some key things that are like, yo, this is where I was and now I'm here?
Yeah, I think, well, if you go back just coaching in general, right? The old paradigm of coaching was very militaristic. Like coach says A, B, C, you're doing A, B, C. You're not even blinking. Well, that pendulum has swung, and now the new coaching paradigm is very relationship oriented. So for me, I like to be in the middle of that. I like to be somewhere in the middle of that because we are pretty disciplined over here. You're going to do what you're told. But yeah, but like at the beginning, as an assistant, I'll take that out because you have all these opinions and you think you know things, but until you're in the hot seat, it's a little different. So like my first half at Columbia, like I said earlier, box checker, I wanted to get this result, these amount of wins. I wanted to go this far or make the state tourney or turn the program around or whatever it may be. And by doing that, I boxed my growth. And as soon as it was system oriented, so like, this is how we're going to do things on a day-to-day basis. This is how we're going to wake up. This is how we're going to treat each other. This is how we're going to practice. This is how we're going to speak to teachers. Once we started doing that, and I'm not saying I don't care about the results, because obviously I do, but when I stopped, like, the score is going to take care of itself. Like, you have to, when you get to the game, like I said, the pregame thing, like the hay's in the barn, like they're going to do what they're going to do. So it's more for me, like I said, that relationship part, and then the mental side of this, and that goes hand in hand with the relationship part. And back to where we started, when you're a head coach, you're a problem solver. Well, when you have relationships, if your relationship is greater than the problem, you don't have a problem. If the problem is greater than your relationship, you probably don't have a relationship, or a very good one, and you need to work on that. And so as I have gone, I've got better at identifying, obviously, the guys we want in our program, and then being able to connect with those guys, so that when problems come up, when life happens, we can fall back on our systems and fall back on our relationships, and that kind of catapults us forward in the right direction. I don't know if that answers that or not, but that's kind of all over the place. But
yeah, no doubt. I think what you just said at the end is gold, right? If your relationship is greater than the problem, you figure it out. And if it's not, then it's probably going to implode whatever relationship that you do have currently with whomever the other stakeholder is. I also want to go back to what you said earlier about figuring out how to be a master problem solver, and that sometimes you solve one problem and it unintentionally creates others. Are there any examples of that you can share, and how you were able to navigate that situation?
Yeah, that's good. A lot of times it's, it'd be like, your school says you need to raise X amount of money, and you have X amount of time to do it. And so it's kind of a tall task. Maybe you go ahead and you get it done, and you exceed expectation. And now, by exceeding expectation, you have now raised the bar from your administrators. Well, you did this last year, so you need to raise it this year. And so you solved that first problem, but now you created another problem because the goalposts are moving, so to speak. Things like that. When it comes to the guys, I think it's just, they're 18, 19 years old. It's similar stuff every year. It could be, playing time. It's not really, I think, how they're treated, at least here, I don't think. But yeah, it could be, I don't like the guy I live with because he acts a certain way. But then, the next day you see the guy who's complaining about it being a complete, butthead to that guy. And you're like, look, man, it's not a one-way street. So like I said, it's just, it's usually a bunch of little things, but problems or issues unresolved multiply. So like, everything matters. So even as small as something may be, you see someone look funny, like that happens a lot here. Like, we see someone with a certain look on their face, they're coming in the office that night after the game, like, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? Because unresolved problems are going to multiply no matter what. And that could be like a mushroom cloud. And over the course of time, that usually will take your team down at the end of the year. And that's the opposite of what you want. So.
Yeah. Another golden nugget: problems or issues unresolved multiply. And I don't think early in our coaching careers, or hell, even in our professional careers, we are aware of how impactful that is. And I think there are conflict seekers and conflict avoiders. And the more you can be on the seek out conflict side of things, generally you have more resolutions as well, versus letting things pile up and get to a breaking point. How would you say you have figured out how to deal with conflict avoiders to make sure that these unresolved problems don't multiply?
Yeah, that's trial and error. I worked for, mentioned before, Tony Markopoulos, brilliant coach, and meetings every day. And I was lucky enough to be in just about every single one of those meetings for 4 years, and heard how he dealt with that with guys. And so then when it came my turn here at Columbia, I'd be like, hey, this is how we did it at Cabrillo. I need to have a meeting. And I was in the meeting and I was getting feedback from players that I was not ready or prepared or trained on how to answer. And that's the best way for me, how I've ever done anything, is just to jump in and do it and know I'm going to make mistakes, like we all do. But I think failing isn't making mistakes. Failing is not attempting to be proactive in whatever it is we're talking about or try. Like you should always be trying to grow. And if you're not, then maybe that's a sense of failing. So I think it was more so, you know, reps. I just have so many reps at it because I'm talking, we meet every day with like 3 or 4 guys. We're meeting every day. And sometimes it's not disciplinary. It's like I get guys from Florida and I'm talking trash on, you know, the Buccaneers or the Jaguars or something like that. You know, it's just a collision like we talked about. But when the issues do come up, you know, it helps when you have a better relationship with them. And then some things you're never going to be prepared for. Some things it's a death in the family. It's guys get in a car accident. There's an issue off the court with the team. There's an issue on the court with the teams. We haven't had this one yet, but guys could get someone pregnant. It could be anything, and it's life. And so it's the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. But I think you have to have the intent to help improve the situation, not just solve the problem so you don't have to worry about it anymore. I think you have to care.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me follow up with this since you brought up failure. What's your favorite failure and what did you learn from that experience? And by that, I mean, is there a moment in time where you fumbled something pretty substantially in regards to, I don't know, your coaching job or something else, but that it was a transformational moment for you that you've built on ever since?
Yeah, I think, well, one, again, I think like losing is not failing. Like losing's losing. So in a way, I don't feel like I've failed because I feel like I keep getting better and keep improving every year. But to your question, so we traditionally played zone my first 2-3 years. We were in a 2-3 zone. Not my personality. I'm more like cut my head open. It's bleeding. I'm not doing anything about it. We're going to play until I pass out kind of thing. And so I saw one of my former players was at Sonoma State. And they were doing this 1-1-3. It was more matchup in your face. And I think at the time, this was maybe like 2017, 18, somewhere around there. They were like second in NCAA in points per game allowed at like 55. So I call the coaches up there and I go up there and I meet with Rich. And for a day, I drive up to Sonoma and he kind of goes through this is the progression of how we teach it and install it, and this is what we're trying to do, and this is the purpose of each position when the ball's in certain places. So I'm going to do that. I've never done it. Let's do it. So I do it, and I think we were like 4-6, 6-4, somewhere around there after 10 games, and it was the shooting percentages of the other team was like through the roof. I was not teaching it right. I was like, I just messed up this whole year trying to do this defense that I'm not familiar with. And so right before league, we just said, hey, we're going to switch everything. We're going to start in this formation and then switch everything. And that alone has changed everything we do now, because now we have this, it's a really unique defense where it's a switching man, but the ball side is man, the back side is zone. We do like some peel switches off of it that are really unique for this level. It's really hard for you to run your stuff. Unless you just have superior athletes that can just shoot it, go get it. It's really hard for you to run your stuff. And so that has, over the course of 3 years, we've tweaked it enough to where we can really teach it, get really good on that end of the floor. And because we run 4 out on offense, the offense and defense are connected so that the offense is continually getting the reps that they need, that they're going to get in the game. The defense is getting the reps. And so we're always making each other better. Where before it was hard when you play zone and you're working on your man offense, you know, it practice slows down. So this is a lot quicker. It goes into our presso. So everything now is more connected, which goes back to the beginning, you know, doing both sports. I had to be more efficient with my time. This is another example. Like now we're super efficient. We know exactly what we're doing. And so that trying something new and really, you know, failing in the sense of this isn't working and having to pivot made it a success. But initially it's like, you know, this is not what I thought it was. I am not good at teaching this. I always put it back on me. It's not my guys. Like, I did not teach this well because we're not as good right now. And then it turned into this huge blessing. Like we're what we do is really special, I think, right now.
Yeah. And I think the takeaway there is there's positivity in everything if you're willing to be optimistic and look for the solutions rather than just, hey, you know, this whole thing was a debacle. I think that's the lesson that you can take away from there, in addition to how you've been able to deploy that now as a weapon in your program. Last question. What have you most recently changed your mind on? And by that, hey, I used to be over here. Now I'm over here, and here's why. Doesn't have to be basketball related. Can be how you drive a car, who knows, but just the way in which we have growth mindset, and we're constantly asking questions to figure out how to become better at certain things.
Yeah. And I drive a lot slower now because I have children, but no, off the court, I'm a real picky eater. So I'm trying. It's really hard for me because, you know, and I'm such a, gosh, I tell, you know, we talk about being mentally tough all the time in my program. I'm like the most mentally weak person when it comes to food, but I'm trying to do that. And then as far as basketball, you know, some of the stuff that, like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like a lot of programs, or at least they used to be, was, you know, when you're on offense, who gets back on defense? You know, who's your first guy back? It's usually your point guard. You know, at least when I was growing up, they always say, hey, the one gets back, the one gets back. And if the one goes and gets a layup, then the two gets back. And so to me, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. So because we play 4 out, and I don't know where the guys are going to be necessarily when the shot goes up, you know, it makes more sense for me. Whoever's closest to half court is what we call safety, and they yell safety and they run through the logo. And it could be your best rebounder, but if at that moment they're up at the top of the key, you know, it's, you know, more beneficial for us for that person to get back. And if two guys don't know who's closest, maybe both of them get back. That's not a bad problem to have. So we've done that, which I think has been helpful. And then just rebounding philosophy in general, I think I've just kind of put it under 2 umbrellas right now. There's hitters and there's getters. And some guys, you know, maybe they're not as bouncy as other guys, or maybe they're more physical, and you can have a scout like, hey, this is a big 6'8" dude. He gets a lot of rebounds, but he really hurts teams on the offensive end. We need to make sure we hit him. So if you're around him, you're a hitter. But maybe you have, like, you know, I've had some really good players, and you have a 6'5" guy that could put his forehead on the rim. Like, no, I don't want you hitting anybody. I want you to go get it. You know, I don't want to stop. I don't want to be the reason you're being limited. So, and there's time and place for all this, but it's, I think, you know, the rebounding side of it, you know, hitters and quitters. And then, yeah, I mean, we keep things very simple now. Before it was very, you got to do all this stuff in this offense. And now it's like, who are our best players? Let's get them the ball in the most, you know, efficient place and give them 2-3 dribbles with an extra option and let them go to work. And by that, we're harvesting confidence. Another example is, and it doesn't matter if people know this, if we catch it in the corner, they have to shoot it. They have to shoot it. They have to. Now, I don't have a metric for this, but I know if I'm in a corner, and I know if you're in the corner, and you know if they pass it to you, you're going to shoot it, I know your shooting percentage is going to go up because you already know it before you shoot it. I'm taking the decision away from you and saying, it's go ahead, shoot it. Now, there's certain things in the offense where when guys know that we have tiers for shooters. We have like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So if it's like a tier 3 shooter, our guys will do something to get them out of the corner so they don't have to pass it to them. And so, so there's a way to manipulate it. Or like layups. Like, we have 2 rules with layups. You can't charge into someone. You can't get your shot blocked. We never talk about if you miss it or make it. We're trying to harvest your confidence. Go in there. Be you. Be who you are. There's a certain level of control you have to have. But at the same time, we don't want to, it's not smart to box guys up, especially at this level, because you might only have them for the 7 months. And, well, all of college basketball is like that right now, but you might only have them for 1 year, and you need to get the most out of them while helping them improve. So anyways, those are some examples of stuff we're shifting. We're always looking like, how can we be more efficient? How can we harvest confidence? And then back to, we got to ask why do we do this? Like, and answer it. And when you answer it, maybe it's like, yeah, this is dumb. Why are we doing this? This actually doesn't make sense at all, you know?
Well, no. And I think the takeaway there is that the more you can clearly define roles, the more successful you're going to be. So whether that be like, hey, you're a shooter, you're a driver, you're a ball changer. If you catch it in the corner, you're shooting it. Like all those things are simple, and they actually increase outcome and performance across the board, both, as you said, shooting percentage, but also win percentage, because people are no longer having to make decisions. They're reacting to predetermined conditions, which I think is an experience hack that when you're young, you're trying to figure this stuff out and trying to coach everything. And what you just said at the very beginning, we have systems. And the more you can apply your systems, the more success you're going to have, both as individuals and as a team. So appreciate you being here today. Thanks for tapping in. Hopefully you'll get down here at some point, because I don't go off of the coast. But look forward to come watch you if you ever get down here to play at Monterey Peninsula College.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Take it easy.